So one of the ways that we've been working on this is after September 11th, we started getting a lot of calls from immigrants and from community groups saying, we heard that the Patriot Act, this piece of legislation that was passed after September 11th, has changed the situation, and that now immigrants can no longer access bank accounts. You need to have a social security number. And it's simply not true. So that's one of the myths that we should just quickly dispel right now. But the reason it caused confusion is because there is this obscure piece of the Patriot Act, that's Section 326, if anyone's interested. And what it says is that financial institutions have to ask for certain information about people's identity to open an account. And those things are your name, your date of birth, your address, and they need to get from you an identification number. And so for US citizens, the most common identification number is the Social Security number or another sort of taxpayer ID number. But if you're a non-citizen, regardless of your immigration status, the Patriot Act allows you to provide an identification number that can be an individual taxpayer ID number or an ITIN. It can be the number from your foreign passport, a foreign driver's license, and a wide range of other sorts of documents. And so many, not all, but many undocumented immigrants in this country will have some of these pieces of documentation that they can use to open accounts. So Andres and Zoe, I want to just ask you if this resonates with you, if you think that this is something that immigrants in your neighborhood are struggling with as they try to access banking services.
I'll let you answer that.
I think I have a very good experience with that. When what is happening in Queens, especially in Queens, Jackson Heights, is every time you go to the bank, you're trying to open an account, and they ask you for those kind of documents, the social ID and the passport, or all that kind of information. And if you don't have this document on or legal, they just close your door. You can open an account. So that's make you very, very close. You can do anything else in terms of financial situation. If you can open an account, a saving or checking account, you can have a credit. So if you don't have a credit, you won't gonna have a credit history. If you don't have any credit history, you won't gonna have any loan. So that's a circle. That's a circle that running and running and running and never stop. That's the main problem that immigrants without documents in Jackson Heights has.
And that actually mirrors a lot of what our experience has been working on these issues, which is that even though the law says that banks they do have flexibility in who they provide services to, and they don't need to ask for the Social Security number, a lot of banks just choose to do so anyway. And there's a host of different reasons, and one of the things we should explain to viewers is that certain pieces of the Patriot Act that govern identification and other sorts of requirements of banks, the purpose of it is not to make it harder for immigrants to get bank accounts, at least the stated purpose. Their stated purpose is to address money laundering, to prevent people from laundering money through banks or to finance terrorism. And so inevitably what's happened is that immigrants, and especially lower income and undocumented immigrants, have gotten caught up in that net, and so now they're having the issues that you're describing, where they're going into banks and being told, well, if you don't have a Social Security number, I really don't know what to do for you. And I think that your credit union project will be an important way to address some of those issues.
Yeah, and I actually used to work in a bank, and that's exactly part of the issue, that as a bank employee, you're afraid that you're going to make a mistake and you're going to do something wrong and you're going to get sent to prison. And so the bank sets up these policies that basically make it very difficult or impossible for someone to open an account. And hopefully, the credit union will resolve that for a lot of people, and that's one of the reasons why we're working on this. What we hope is that the credit union can offer a way, not just access to bank accounts, but to a series of financial services to the low-income, working and immigrant communities of Jackson Heights, and anybody else who wants it, obviously. But not just to have a bank account, but also to learn about how to manage their money, to start thinking about the future and planning, and also to invest in the community itself. So,
Exactly. Well, that's great, and I want to talk about that in a little bit some more. But I do want to say, so, if you're watching this, you may be thinking, well, that sounds great for Jackson Heights, but what about me if I live in Sunset Park, where there isn't a credit union, or one of the many other immigrant neighborhoods in New York City? And one of the things that our organization at NEDAP does is facilitate a network of organizations throughout New York City. Forest Hills Community House is one member, and it's an immigrant financial justice network. And some of the things that we're trying to do is advocacy with other banks and other institutions in New York so that we can educate them better about the Patriot Act and help them to basically make their requirements for services adaptable so that more immigrants can access services. And if any groups or individuals out there are interested or want more information, I hope that you'll feel free to call us. But one of the things that you said, Andres, that I think is very important is that, some people will say, well, immigrants, especially if you're not making a lot of money, you may not even be able to afford a bank account, right? Now banks, it's not like banks are the saviors for people financially. A lot of banks charge high fees. They have different products that some community groups have real issues with, including us, where they sometimes take advantage of people by, charging them just exploitative fees and selling them products that they don't sell to middle income or upper income customers.
Services that you don't really need it.
Services that you don't need, right, that are sort of just big money makers for them. And so it's not to say that that's, the solution, but I think what you were talking about with, how a bank account leads to other things is very important. And in this society where, our credit reports and our credit histories are being used to determine more and more things about us, not just lending decisions, but decisions that employers make about hiring us, decisions that landlords make about renting us apartments, decisions that insurance companies now are using more and more to decide whether they're going to give you insurance policies for auto insurance or homeowners or renters insurance, and how much you'll be charged for all these things. It means that as a result of being locked out of that system, immigrants, as well as young people and many others, are paying a higher price for things, unfairly in many cases.
I want to add something to that. Related to the whole Social Security question, the federal government passed a law. They tacked it on to the Tsunami Appropriations Bill last spring. It's called the Real ID Act, and basically it mandates that within the next 3 years, all of the states implement a uniform driver's license system and put all of that information into one place. And it requires that the states ask for a Social Security number as a form of identification in order to get a driver's license. And the whole point about credit reports actually is really closely related to this. If we have one central place where all of this information is available, how many hackers are going to get into it and get these Social Security numbers and consequently mess up credit reports for all kinds of people?
Right, identity theft being one of the fastest growing crimes right now.
Right. The Social Security Administration and Social Security numbers were never intended to be a form of identification. In fact, it says that on the card.
Right.
So why now are we using this as a way of, distinguishing people? That is not what it was meant for. And I think it makes the roads less safe. But I just wanted to
No, I think that's a